Good evening, everyone. I'm Makush Lopinder. It's good having you back with us. Having purchased the Grand Lucayan Resort last summer against the advice of many, the government had hoped to offload the property to its new owner as soon as possible. But as BJ McDermott tells us in this report, that's a process that's taking longer than expected.
Had the government's plan followed through, an investor for the Grand Lucayan Resort would have at the very least been locked down by the second quarter of this year. At least that's what Tourism Minister Dionisio Diaghilev indicated during an earlier interview. However, outside Cabinet on Tuesday, reporters heard that clinching a deal for the 400-plus acre property could take a bit longer.
If it was just 3 people, then it would be easy, but it's 60 or whatever the chairman said, and it may even take a little bit longer. But anyway, we'll see. We're continuing the process. What we're reporting to the Bahamian people is there's a lot of interest.
Now, as you just heard, there are a reported 60 bidders, and through it all, a process has to be followed.
You have to gather in all that information. You have to sift through it to see which ones are serious and not serious. Then you have to begin a negotiation process to see whether people on what terms they want to do it. This takes time. This is not something that you can flip a switch and it happens. I mean, this is a very important project. It's very important that we pick a credible partner. You know, and I know this thing doesn't happen at the flip of a switch, and to imply that it does is not correct.
The minister's comments follow those of Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine, who on Monday told reporters that Grand Bahamians are not impressed with how many investors are jockeying to own the property, but rather that the resort is actually sold. Overall, the minister says the government is not prepared to take a loss in selling the property, a property it purchased last summer at the cost of $65 million. Reporting for JCN News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Meantime, the tourism minister expressing surprise following the release of the U.S. State Department's recent travel advisory on the Bahamas, and particularly considering crime here has been trending downwards. The advisory, which the minister stresses is quite similar to the last, urges visitors to exercise increased caution as violent crimes such as burglaries, armed robberies, and sexual assault are common even during the day in tourist areas. The statement further points out that the vast majority of crimes occur in New Providence and Grand Bahama.
We thought that a lot of the verbiage in the advisory was an exaggeration. The Ministry of National Security is looking to exactly how many foreign visitors experienced some sort of crime activity or crime incident. We feel that it's negligible, and so we're going to push back a little bit. As we are now dialoguing with the U.S. Embassy, and we're going to push back. We think that that even though there may be areas of pockets of crime, really the effect on foreign visitors to a country is so negligible that it doesn't warrant the very strong language that they said in that crime advisory. So conversations will continue.
Now, when asked if he expects the advisory to negatively impact the country's bread and butter industry, here's what he told reporters.
Well, it's exactly the same travel advisory as last year, and the number of stopover visitors to our country increased by 17%. So I'll leave it there.
The Bahamas last year enjoyed a banner year with every expectation that the numbers coming out of 2019 will be equally impressive. In other news this evening, the number of illegal immigrants could very well increase here in the Bahamas, this considering there is some $5 million outstanding in fees from people who have been issued letters approving their permits, but who have not yet paid.
If a person does not come in and pay for their permit, because it's usual they walk around for months with this and that, they will be considered as an illegal immigrant and deported, irrespective of how many times they've had a work permit. You get the letter, you pay your fees, or you're deemed to be an illegal immigrant. That will be strictly enforced.
As Immigration Minister Brian Simonet explained, there is a life expectancy of 30 days on those letters. Now, as for the backlog in work permits, the minister said that's been shaved down to a 6-week turnaround period.
1/3 of them are being emailed to the respondents, to the applicants. The other 2/3 obviously go through the mail, so we're pretty well caught up on that. We're working on permanent residency and citizenship now. The commission, which does people born in the Bahamas who apply between 18 and 19, they're down to 233 applicants that are outstanding that have completed their files.
Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, one of several CARICOM heads attending today's intersessional meeting in St. Kitts. Today's agenda also calls for holding bilateral talks with the President of Estonia. Today's discussions follow a special meeting of the Community Council of Ministers on Monday, attended by Foreign Affairs Minister Darren Henfield. Those talks centered on updates related to reform in the Caribbean community, CARICOM's participation in Beijing Expo 2019, and negotiations for a post-Cotonou agreement. According to Minister Henfield, the meeting was a productive one. The minister will represent the Prime Minister at upcoming meetings during which Caribbean leaders discuss matters related to transportation, funding for security institutions, and challenges faced by international financial centers in the Caribbean. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.
This segment of the news was brought to you by Alive.